Oh, what's that? The timer is a lie? Yes, the timer is a lie. I really thought Rainier vs. Hero Marine is going to go on for much, much longer, so... I, you know, highballed it, and I was wrong, but that's what tweets are for, so hopefully people come in with a tweet. It is the beginning of the North American section. Actually, sorry, the Americas section. Ugh. Guess I gotta redo my tweet and everything. JK, I'm not gonna bother. I'm not in the mainstream. Flip it. It's the Americas, not the North America, because, well, not many of these people are originally from North America. Although, to note, time is in San Francisco, so whatever. Whatever. In the top left is the blue Terra, and it is MaSa. In the bottom right is the red Terra, and it is time. Okay, so factory expands coming down for both players. We have seen some starports added on to this, even though you do take one guy out of each gas. But usually if you take 3 total out of gas, then you are not going to add the starport. Oh, no, but you still can, apparently. He actually went down to 1 out of 3 on both for a couple seconds there, so just very, very precise then. But like I said, yeah, so it used to be that if you had any guys out of gas, you weren't really going to go for the complete 1-1-1. And then there's also some argument that you could make that the 1-1-1 really isn't that great, but it's kind of come back. And you can still afford, you know, if you're going to go for Hellions and not the quickest Cyclone, and you're not going to go for Cloak, then you can definitely still afford to go for a Starport, a Medevac, a Liberator, something along those lines. With the limited gas you've taken, and still get a faster CC, but you see Time actually did go for the factory expand and is only now getting his starport. So you pop a Liberator out of this starport here. There you go. And then suddenly you have 2 types of attacks, right? You have one to the front and one in the main. And even if they know it's on the way, the timing of their anti-air is very, very close. You know, if they get a Cyclone, that doesn't pop out for a little while. If they get a Viking, doesn't pop out. You know, there's not many options for shooting up here, so the Liberator can do a lot of damage, even if it means it only pulls people off of mining. But this attack at the front didn't go so hot. It is pretty much the thing to do now, to go for 3 Reapers and 3 Hellions, or at least 2 Hellions, which is what Time did. MaSa loses his first Hellion that was already weakened right off the bat, so even though Time was down a Hellion, he's not doing too poorly here. Gets that last Reaper, so still gonna win out by 1 Hellion. This Hellion's actually gonna go ahead and draw back the Hellions of MaSa. 2 Hellions would still 2-shot SCVs, so it's not the most dangerous thing in the world to let those into Time's natural. It still would be something, wouldn't it? And then also the Cyclone wouldn't be around to deal with it, because maybe he has to deal with the Liberator in the main. It gets hectic, so I actually really like that. The Hellion of Time wasn't going to do anything else. The Liberator ends up going to the natural, which is maybe a little bit of a surprise, but not the Time. Time was already prepared for it, and Cyclones, once upon a time, did not kill Liberator in 1 lock-on. They do now. So, what could have been a very hectic opener, could have been a lot more damage, ends up being pretty normal. They both are going into a faster 3rd CC. Moss is down 2 SCVs-ish. Both going into Ravens, getting those tanks. And if Moss was any worse at the follow-up, he could have fallen way behind. And if he was any better with the actual attack, he could have been way ahead, you know. But he is on the ball. You know, the attack didn't work, but his macro behind this was pretty damn good. He kept up with times. So I applaud. Now the next step is, are they going to go into mech or bio? So we have reactors on both barracks, and while you can get like a decent number of Marines and still swap off to mech, if you go above, like, if you're gonna go up to like 10 or something like that, I think we'd usually see them go into bio. Also, I would pin both these players as more bio players, but not exclusively. Swap that Viking producer over. Same for over here. Raven is going to be later for MaSa to do his opener, but That's actually very awkward for Time. He doesn't know if the starport's going to be swapped off or not. 9 times out of 10, I'd say that it is off of the back of a 2-Raven opener, but, like, what if, right? So he kind of misses that timing. We'll just assume. And this does mean that MaSa is going to be slightly behind in those very, very important units. MaSa goes for faster barracks, whereas Time goes for faster stim by, like, 15 seconds. Should not be a big deal. I kind of prefer the additional barracks. Time not too far behind on that, but very, very small differences here. Very, 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 very small. They both are going bio. We're really waiting for them to get medevacs, as that might be. It's probably what they're gonna wait on pushing out for. Yeah, you can push, as Time is doing, but then the other person might be pushing too, and then you get this awkward battle in the middle of the map. But if you got a scout ahead, what the Cyclone does, and you think you can gain control, then by all means do it while Stim is finishing up back at home. It's just that MaSa is going to have the exact same thing here, and he's going to have some type of defender's advantage. So that's where it gets a little tricky. That's where maybe you think, oh, I can't do anything, and you just stay back at home. For MaSa, he was later to this build, so that's probably why he just stayed at home. He actually gets the tanks, and Time's attack is a complete disaster. He might clean up the Marines here, but that's not really what you want. He also lost 4 SCVs on his 3rd CC, and also his 3rd CC was scouted. It was known about by this point, but it was more so that MaSa now confirms he can take his own 3rd CC. He ends up losing one of the tanks and trying to break out of this. Also, the air battle still going on is actually going to go in favor of MaSa as well. So MaSa slam dunked this. Time got a little too close, thought he would interference matrix. His micro, I think, was a little bit off, and then MaSa also was aggressive instead of defensive, which probably threw Time off as well. So whereas he was supposed to get the first interference matrix, or at the very least, the exact same time interference matrix, he ended up being quite late to it, which really, really was a big deal, because MaSa also had enough Marines get a concave on those tanks. So really nice stuff from MaSa, who keeps both Ravens alive and 3 tanks. Nicely done. It doesn't take an SCV lead, but did keep it down a little bit with a Hellion run by. And Stim is finishing up, and now he's going to go ahead and move across the map. He also started 1-1 faster. Time's attack was timed about when his engineering base finished, but he straight up got them later. So, I mean, he got the 1-1 as soon as he had enough minerals and gas, I believe. It just was later. And now he's going to have a rather significant disadvantage in the Marine fights. This is not the 15 seconds of that Stim. This is the, what, 30 seconds of 1-1? Double Raven is going to be so good still, too, because we're not at that Marine count yet where the concave of Marines matters more. It is still about the tank-Viking combination. Raven was damaged, but looks like the focus fire was on a Viking. Time never stopped producing Vikings, which, you know, at a certain point you do want to swap over to medevacs. That's, again, when your Marine count maybe is a little bit higher. Combat shield's almost done for both parties, and it looks like MaSa's not going to get an extreme amount of damage, but because he was able to get up on that ramp, he is denying about half the mining of the natural. So that's really nice. Looking for the snipe on the Raven, he's not going to find it. Again, without a lot of Marines or Stim, being able to back away from this type of position is possible, and MaSa makes the very wise choice. Now behind this, he's got a sensor tower on his 3rd base. Ditto for Time. Once you get that 3-base saturation up, you kind of want to invest in at least some static defense. So 1 sensor tower is definitely the beginning, and is usually enough. But, you know, sometimes you see people go for 2, maybe a couple missile turrets in the main. 4th base is extremely fast and on location, so I would say this is a high chance it goes unscouted. But Time actually faster to the CC, so I said that was extremely fast. No, this is extremely fast. I usually see TVT revolve a little bit more around 3 base for a little while longer, but we are seeing faster and faster 4th bases in a lot of the Terran matchups. Double factory being set up for both parties. Looks like that 2-2 is being evened up here. Nice little Liberator harassment. Actually, only Marine lives. Good job, little Marine. Scans going down, everyone just sending Marines forward. It's Time that has a bit better vision with his Marines right now. Just a tad bit better, but we will see more of these Marines run forward, give additional warning to an attack. We are getting into more of the mobile state of TVT, where the Marines' concaves are going to be huge, sniping a tank and being able to get out. Raven's going to be harder and harder to control amongst everything that's going to be happening. We're going to have drops, maybe even a Doom drop by one person eventually. But Ravens are still very, very, very useful. And in fact, by going into a 4th base, you know, I think we're kind of skipping over a very back and forth TVT. I mean, I shouldn't have said that. We're skipping over the mid-game back and forth, right? We're kind of getting to that late-game back and forth, and that usually means we're going to get into starports and Ravens anyways. Whereas, you know, usually your beginning Ravens die off due to one thing or another. They're actually going to keep their original Ravens. Really passive stuff. I'm guessing they don't get a ton of practice together. As I said yesterday, I think MaSa has been practicing more StarCraft in recent weeks than he was in the beginning of WCS Winter. And, well, time is just kind of still proving that he is a considerable Terran. Not just some, like, oh, who's this guy? What's his style? Like, he's actually quite good mechanically and is mostly showing the same style as the Koreans. Which is kind of an NA thing. NA, for the most part, just copies the Korean styles. Europe maybe has a different meta, different builds. Looks like MaSa's gonna go for it. He does have a concave, and he just interference matrix 4 out of the 6 tanks, but I don't think that was enough. The interference matrix actually happened kind of after his Marines were already getting shot at, and the wide open space means that Time also got a decent concave, so that was scary, but it ends up being kind of an even trade, and then MaSa, that wasn't even his entire army force, so he does go ahead and bring that forward. 2 more tanks, locking down this little choke, looking down this location, which is really quite important, because if this is broken, there's now an avenue of attack into the main base, but Time getting a little overconfident perhaps. He still has so many tanks, though, that even though it's mostly tanks, there just aren't enough units from MaSa to get that amazing concave to actually take them down. This is a very scary army for Time. If MaSa gets like 20, 30 extra Marines, which is going to happen fast, 10 Marines at a time here, then he could lose a lot of expensive, slow-building units, but he could also take a risk here and try and actually lock down MaSa's 3rd base, which seems to be going quite well. He's now even reached a reinforcement point on that choke, so he was actually taking stabs at the supply as it came down. MaSa goes from being a little higher in supply to being actually considerably less in that supply. Failed attempt to go ahead and drop on top of the tanks too, and this is looking very, very bad for MaSa. He's lost control over the map, and Time is just continuing to rally forward. He's also already onto his starports, already onto his liberators. One wrong move, and suddenly MaSa forced to tap out. GG. Very, very close. But MaSa was the instigator there. He could have just held a tank siege line and been like, okay, let's go into Ravens and Liberators, and this game goes on for quite some time, but he thought he saw an opportunity to break the tank line. And with 2 Ravens, I don't really blame him. It's such a weird thing that happens when you... I mean, first of all, he was already being attacked. That was just, you know, it was going to happen. But then second of all, I feel like the interference matrix isn't... It feels like it should be instant, but it's really not. It's a kind of a slow projectile. I don't usually think about the speed of a projectile that much, but it kind of is. Especially because it literally can be cast from a longer range. It takes even longer to hit the tanks. It's just... I feel like if it was instant, if it just like went from the Raven right to the tanks, then MaSa dominates that fight. It's like really, really close stuff. New Repugnancy is coming up next. MaSa says that Time is a TVT god, and Time said he got lucky. The top right, up 1 on New Repugnancy. It is the Red Terran, Time. Currently in San Fran. In the bottom left, as the Blue Terran, it is MaSa. MaSa just taking a chance there. It kind of is, it's kind of what he's known for too. Like Time, a lot of up-and-coming Terrans. They get the props are given to their multitasking, their micro, their riskiness, and that's how Kelazur started out too, and still is Kelazur's thing. Not many Terrans get the like stamp of approval when it's like, oh, they're defensive macro Terran, like they can defend really well. Like that's Hero Marine and Innovation, I guess, still technically, but when it comes to top tier Korean TVT, it's like you gotta do both really well. But yeah, Innovation does, I guess, play more defensive games than others, like, eh. But anyways, but MaSa, I think, still has that kind of, like, occasionally you will see him make the big catastrophic mistake, as opposed to some of the other really good Terrans that we have, where they're maybe a little more cautious. I mean, it's years of experience, but it's also years of, yeah, the 50-50. The, yeah, I worked that one time in that one tournament, and I won $1,000 because of it. And then it also lost in that one time, and I lost $2,000 because of it, you know? And it was such a small thing. He had his tanks behind him, which chat noticed, but he knew he would have the tanks behind him. I don't think he was necessarily thinking, okay, the tanks will get the shots off and that'll help my Marines. I think he was thinking, my Marines can do it. He really believed in his Marines, and it just wasn't the case. But it was the aggressive move, whereas Time was playing more into the safer macro game, still on the map, still pushing and applying pressure and putting himself in situations where he could be concaved on or surrounded, but he was doing it slowly but surely. He was going into the starports, the liberators, he was playing that longer game, and MaSa was the one that forced the game to end, really. Even though it wasn't a super dramatic, oh my god, that was a terrible decision, it did slowly snowball into Time's victory. That's what MaSa does. And I don't expect this to be any different, except I expect him to maybe even win with the same type of fight. So I'm talking about MaSa being aggressive. He is going for a proxy starport. He did keep all of his guys in gas, maybe. So this might even be a follow-up into Banshees, but I think it'll be a Liberator first, and it is. Time went for Hellions, which is a bit of an odd thing in TVT. Not super, super rare, but of all the build orders we see, I guess this is last on the list that I think of. It's just a bit weird because, well, at rebooting it to see what it was. So, one, does Time even know that MaSa is one basing? No, he doesn't. He knows nothing. So if they got like a bunker and they're playing safe behind their 1-Rex expand, like the Hellions don't feel very good. If they're not, if they don't get a bunker, if they just, you know, you're just hoping to try and bypass their army, it's like, will it even work? Will it even do damage? Like, there's not even gonna be that many SCVs in the natural. And then last but not least, are they better than 3 Reaper Grenades? That is the biggest question for this scenario right now. You have 6 Hellions, but 3 Reapers, 3 Hellions. What is better? I think with proper, perfect control, I think it would be MaSa. Then on top of that, you now have nothing to deal with this Liberator, which kills 6 SCVs and is denying a heck of a lot of mining time. The Hellions of Time do win out against the combination units of MaSa, but the Liberator plus Reaper Hellion attack has done a lot of damage. You know what? That Liberator actually didn't do any damage. It killed 1 building SCV. It was the Hellions and the Reapers down here that killed all the SCVs. But still, the point is that Liberator denied a ton of mining time, now gets a second SCV as it repositions away from the auto turret. And since the factory wasn't already on a tech lab, There's on that reactor. It's going to take a little while for the Cyclone to pop out, which actually Time's not even getting. He can barely even afford it. There we go. There we go. Thank you, Time Overwhelming, for the 250. Yeah, Time fan here. So the starport packs it up, goes home. Very successful attack there from MaSa. He's up 4 workers, and in general, his economy should have spiked. Yeah, it spiked really hard for a while there. Even gets into the natural where there's not a lot of units. He could probably just try and shoot down some SCVs, but he's actually trying to take the fight. Cyclone does pop out though in the nick of time, so now he decides to go for the SCVs. Gets that last one, and will get killed. The Cyclone wasn't at the time it was, or if it was still in the main base, had been rallied somewhere else, that could have been a little bit deadlier. MaSa's finishing up his 3rd CC right now, getting his own Ravens, has his own tanks, Marines, adding on the production. Time just doesn't have a very big army. If MaSa had gone into that natural with his Hellion Reapers and saw, you know, 3 Cyclones or 10 Marines in a tank or something along those lines, he might be a little scared. But instead he saw just a very small group of units, and while Raven Cyclone is good, you would need more like 2 Ravens and a Cyclone and a tank to really try and force some type of abusive position. So Time is just straight up behind. He's only now getting it to his 3rd CC. His production of bio is going to be a lot later. His engineering base is going to be a lot later. I was gonna throw out there until he started stim that maybe he'd just try and go for mech, because he's kind of behind, and you know, mech being a little more defensive, a little more based off that 2-base turtling. Maybe you could try and bring a game back with that, but nah, doesn't go for it. Still gonna try and play his way into stim, so he's gonna be behind on the upgrades, and he's gonna be behind on the Marine production. So it's like, is that faster sim really going to impact? Where, you know, sometimes really fast sim is very difficult to deal with. This isn't even that fast a sim, and yeah, it won't be that many Marines. So MaSa loses a couple SCVs to some harassment, but still up by 2. Now is 3 CC to produce triple SCV. Not quite confident enough to take this base though, and that's, I think, the right call. I think technically MaSa would be able to hold, but it'd be really scary now that there are tanks, now that there are Vikings. Much safer to just get up that Marine count. Take it in like 30 seconds here. Because there's no direct attack, I guess I don't mind the Raven harassment, but Ravens are so damn useful. To potentially sacrifice them just to get some denied mining isn't usually worth it. And then in the really catastrophic scenario, your Raven is out of position when they do tank push you, right? So you don't usually see Raven harassment. It's not usually, I think, it's not usually advised, I would say. But this game is going to be a little different, and Time was also harassing him with his Raven. Difference is, his Raven got out. And now MaSa has 0 Ravens. I mean, the Ravens kind of turned on him last game. Maybe he doesn't trust the Ravens anymore. Be gone, I don't need you anymore. But let's be real, anti-arm missile comes down to Marine fights, very, very impactful. And a couple interference matrix can save your life. It just didn't for MaSa last game. Three base to 3. Sensor tower is coming up. MaSa already on his way to 2-2 with an almost perfectly timed armory right there. Combat shield should be starting very soon. There we go. And MaSa is in the lead. Viking stopping any type of drop. Ditto, I guess, for MaSa. He also has spotters, so there are a pair of Vikings down here, Marines here and here. Just covering any problems that could occur. Since he knows he's ahead, he's going to stay ahead. He now knows about the 3rd CC, because he got it with the Cyclone, but that was, you know, maybe a mystery for a little while there. And
mineral field depleted.
Yeah, just stay ahead. Time goes to the 4th CC. MaSa goes for additional barracks. He should go into a 4th CC eventually, but I think that might be... Oh, you know what? Those are the 2 extra barracks finishing up. Never mind. I thought he was going up to 7 or 8. So yeah, so he should be throwing on his 4th CC soon as well. he had to afford that 2-2-1. Also, second factory before 4th CC this game. I think it was different last time. If Time ends up playing just in general more defensive, I think it would make sense for the position he felt he was in the early game. The way that you feel about an early game like that is probably even worse than what it actually is. It was not great, but probably felt worse for him. And at most, you might try and do a drop just to keep up pressure, but with the Vikings being readily available, it would have been bad. So Time just turtles up, gets a 4th base. He'll now have the economic lead if he can get that on location with workers transferred over. MaSa's is just building, even though he's at a higher worker count. But he's got to be really scared of some of these marine fights. 2-2 versus 1-1 in just like 20 seconds, 30 seconds here. He's got a drop set up in the natural. There are a couple of Vikings and a missile turret that would deal with that pretty well. Cyclone, I somehow just bypassed the army and got in there. Not too big of a deal. This Liberator is denied but not killed. Maybe it could come into the 3rd base? Probably not going to be that useful. 4th base now floating over to the bottom right. So they are mirroring each other's bases. MaSa is, his little harassment force is scanned there, and Time wasn't so silly as to let his 4th CC fly off without guarding it as well. If they're both maxed out, it's really anyone's game, even though marine upgrades are pretty important. If Time has the defensive setup of tanks, it's not really going to be broken. As I say that, I don't see any tanks. There we go. Now repositioning as he sees the might of the army come here. He's going to take the fight. He does have the concave on his side, and also the interference matrix are fantastic. All of the tanks. Oh my god. All the tanks. Did they even get a shot off? I'm not even sure they got a shot off. Well, that's what MaSa wanted to have happen in that last game, but it didn't. Does get a kind of cheeky drop here. I think he got like 2 tanks from that, which is interesting. This Liberator does manage to pull some SCV mining away, despite only having like 5 health there. So, he got something from it, but that was a disaster, really, because the Ravens didn't even die. So, more combo interference matrix anti-air missile can come down. Thank you, SC Boy, for all the donations. Double starport already on the way for Time. He was much quicker at transferring over into that stage of TVT than MaSa was, and MaSa really needs to get on it very, very soon. He is getting into a 5th base on location, also taking an aggressive fight here, decided to not do. That is the wiser choice. Upgrades have evened up. 3-3 is like, yeah, +3 attacks a minute away here. Time being so aggressive. His Ravens are working so damn well here, and does he just win? I guess he just wins. Like, MaSa apparently is only down 20 army supply, but it doesn't look that way. And Time does have a lot of his supply in those Vikings, which are going to be able to take out the command center. But he's not careful. Looks at these 2 tanks. Will maybe hold the line, but the command center is going to go down. No repair coming. No repair. It's going to go down. Oh my god, no! All it took was 1 more shot. He absolutely could have killed that. He should have killed that. But I guess the drop from the main distracted him for just a second. Not a very big drop, but enough to get the distraction. Sometimes it's all you need. And Time backs away, but oh my god, MaSa was so close to just being straight up dead there. Oh wow, now his 5th base is on location, turning into a planetary, but Time built 2 extra buildings. He already has his 5th flying over and a 6th already on the way. MaSa has to remax, which is going to take a lot longer than Time's, and luckily MaSa has already invested into 3-3 plus 3 weapons for his tanks as well. Dear god. He needs that army supply back up there. He's losing control of the game, of the entire map, and that bodes really, really poorly for TVT in general. Yeah, sure, of course, any StarCraft 2 game, but especially against someone who's already swapping into Liberators. The whole thing about Liberators that transfer over into the starports later in the game is that its potential weakness is that you can circumvent it. You know, if you're on the map patrolling and controlling and dropping and you know, getting like 2 tank, 50 Marine armies this way, that way. You can just kind of avoid it until you'll get your own Vikings and your own Liberators. But if you're stuck at home, cornered into your own base, this is the kill move from any Terran, is to go into the Liberators. Now, MaSa does try and go around the map, do something, catch a 6th base, something like that with this Doom-ish drop, but it was scouted. Time now knows that there's a significantly less defense from MaSa. MaSa also was engaging, so he kind of just showed his hand here that his army really is that small. His tanks siege up and will be able to take out the Marines and tanks of, well, sorry, not plural of time, but the Liberators are going to be siege up anyways. That was weird. And they just obliterate everything. Vikings control the skies to the top side, kill one of the medevacs. And MaSa is in a tough spot here. Very tough. Now, he's not out of it yet, but he is in a lot of danger. Just drops out his medevacs. Wants to find the Vikings. Maybe they had gone over some land so he could take care of it. The scan reveals that they're no longer here at all in time. Might have figured the army went back home because he brought all his Vikings to the front lines, but he also could just be going for a kill move. Are the Ravens still alive? No, they died in some fight or another. So that's the good news. But the bad news is the Liberators can still do a slow siege hop. And because 3 of them are sieging up here, it means that if all 3 of them siege on a tank, you cannot unsiege it in time. Marines, actually, I think they got AI'd there. I don't think that was on purpose because they're not stimmed. There's the stim, finally. But he can't reach that one Liberator. Another tank will die. 3 tanks left over. Big drop in the main base, though, does get off without a hitch. Only a single tank defending, so that's going to be upgrade starports going down there. A couple SCVs as well, but here come the Liberators, and there's nothing that MaSa can do about that. That one tank is going to provide the defense for the Liberators. In fact, MaSa's no longer paying attention because he's dying over on his 3rd base. I think Time just too good at TVT. Really bullied MaSa back into a corner and then had the much faster transfer into the starports. So despite MaSa's very strong early game, lead has certainly fallen through his grasp and then some. If only he could get 3-3. Nah, actually, that doesn't even matter anymore. Like, the thing is that Time was significantly later to the upgrades, but because there was no timing hit from MaSa, there was no convincing attack where his Marine count, his Marine upgrades really could shine. The upgrades didn't matter nearly as much as the tank count and the Liberator transfer. It just... It's actually a very smart way to avoid the Marine fight. If you knew you were going to be behind in those upgrades. I keep saying transfer and I mean transition, but whatever. 3 more CCs for Time. Still holding on to his tank count. His Marine count would be lower than MaSa if MaSa was maxed out, and that's where this type of army maybe, you know, with a huge surround dies. But MaSa's not maxed out and really can't get maxed out. He lost that base, trying to build another one, but it's going to be under heavy fire. He's trying to find Time out of position. There's a planetary here, but he's going to find at least one of the command centers. He could maybe get to the planetary, but he'd waste so much time on it. It wouldn't really be worth it. Finding these units out of position. He grabs 4 tanks, I think that was right there. Maybe a Viking as well. Saves his medevacs. Maybe another Viking could go down if he thinks his Marines are just going to die anyways. Not too shabby. Again, if MaSa was on equal base counts. He does have a tank count back up, but he can't... There's nothing he can do about the Viking Liberator except pull them out of position and hope that Time doesn't control them properly. These Liberators are a little far forward. So he gets 2 of them. Liberator range was made alongside these Liberators, so it really is tough to get through the liberation zones, regardless if you have the Marine count. 2 tanks go down. This drop is not going to do very much. High psychology tracking is not researched, nor is building armor, but wouldn't do very much. So MaSa taps out, sees a losing game, even though he wasn't technically dead. Still was a bad game for him, and that's it. Time 2-0's